Good evening. My name is Damon Franklin, and I am the CEO of Franklin Enterprises. Yes, I'm your boss. I'm the man who signs your paychecks. What may you ask? Am I here to talk to you about tonight? I'm here to talk to you about voter registration and voting. Um, so, if I were to ask how many of you are actually registered to vote, I'm sure that I would find that it is not very close to 100% of you. And then if I was to ask how many of you actually voted in the last presidential election, there's a pretty good chance that out of those of you who are registered, it would be less than 60%, as is the national average according to the website fairvote.org. Now, when you think of voting, right, um, that inconvenience can be a deterrent. I myself have had many experiences with voting that just weren't very pleasant. I remember one year I was actually sent to three different polling places, and then when I returned to the initial polling place I went to, they actually found my name on the voter registration log. So I remember thinking how much of an inconvenience it was, but I also remembered hearing the words of my mother and her saying that my grandmother marched on Washington with Dr. Martin Luther King, and knowing the history behind all the voter intimidation and the civil rights struggle, and knowing that people lost their lives in Mississippi. Um, I felt it was something that I needed to do, and I felt, you know what, it's also my right as an American citizen. So you probably are wondering why vote? Why is it so important to me? Because I want your voice to be heard. Just like I want your voice to be heard as a valued member of this company, um, the country should hear what you have to say, and the best way to do that is by casting a vote. Because according to Webster's dictionary, one of the definitions of a vote is a token by which a choice is expressed by ballot. So um, this is very important. And again, there are places in the world where the citizens of that country don't have that right. Now, there's also something else related to your voice being heard. And there's been 5 instances in our country's great history where the individual who was the people's choice, won the popular vote, did not win the presidency. In fact, I remember in the year 2000, I had a roommate. His name was Mike Schneider. Very good guy, very close. Number of years we spent together, but that's for another time. So I remember I was on my way out the door to vote. It was election day, and I asked Mike if he was registered, and he said yes. And I said, "Well, would you like to come vote with me?" And he said, "What's the point? My vote isn't going to matter." And we had an animated conversation about why votes matter and how some countries you can't do that, how people have died, but I was not able to persuade him. And the irony was, later, within the coming days and weeks, that was the closest presidential election ever. In fact, Gore won the popular vote by less than 0.5% over what would eventually become President Bush. It was tied up in the courts, and he eventually lost by 5 votes in the Electoral College. It was the closest election ever. Now, some would say if we got more than that 60% turnout of eligible voters that I mentioned earlier, that we probably would have had a different outcome. That may or may not be the case. And we could get into the topics about uh, modern day voter intimidation and gerrymandering, but that's for another time. Pardon me. Now, the other reason I would encourage you to vote is because it is a right that is protected, it is provided and also protected by our amendments to our Constitution. The 14th, then the 14th protects the right of any natural born or naturalized citizen to have inalienable rights, of which one is voting. And the 15th Amendment provided it for blacks. The 19th provided suffrage for women. And there have been amendments that eliminated poll taxes, which were long used as a form of discrimination. And also, there was an amendment that lowered the voting age to 18 so that more of our citizens could be heard. So, you probably are wondering, why am I mentioning all of this to you? Because voting is important and I want you to partake in it. Now, as an incentive, if you actually go out and register and then vote. Any time that you spend registering or voting, I will not only compensate you for, but when they give you that little sticker upon exiting the polling place behind the curtain and voting, I will provide not only dinner for you, but for your family as well. There will be a list of eateries that you may choose from, and Damon Franklin, your boss, will provide dinner for you and your family just for doing something that you should do anyway. That's having your voice heard and letting your vote be part of what is the beauty of democracy. The fact that we get to make a choice that is then heard. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being such wonderful employees. Keep doing that.